Weather has a way of making people get creative. Sometimes a little too creative. From frog weddings to bring on the rain, to ghost armies that live in the fog, right through to cannons meant to scare hail right out of the sky, some of these are steeped in tradition, but most of them are just plain baffling. So, before we begin, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and stick around, because it only gets weirder from here. I'm Mike with List 25, and these are 25 weather myths that'll make you go, huh? 25. Frog weddings for rain. In some parts of India, droughts don't just bring water restrictions, they bring wedding bells. For frogs, that is. These ceremonies often take place when the monsoon is late or weak. Known as Manduka Parinaya or Bekuli Bia, it involves capturing a male and female frog, dressing them in traditional wedding clothes, and conducting a full Hindu ceremony to appease rain deities like Lord Indra or Varun Devta. The female often gets a toe ring or even sindoor on her forehead, with a red thread tying the couple together, just like in a human wedding. In 2019, one such ceremony at Karnataka actually made the headlines when rain followed soon after. But as charming as it is, the science is clear. Frogs croak during monsoon season because it's mating time, not because they control the weather. 24. Nuking a hurricane to stop it. This one has popped up in real conversations, and not just once or twice. In the late 50s and early 60s, during the so-called peaceful uses era of nuclear technology, a meteorologist named Jack W. Reed floated the idea that detonating a nuclear bomb in the eye of a hurricane might disrupt its structure by replacing warm air with cold. Even the head of the U.S. Weather Bureau said he could imagine doing this far out at sea. Fast forward a couple decades, and during a White House briefing, Donald Trump asked why the U.S. couldn't nuke them as they formed off the coast of Africa. Federal scientists and agencies like NOAA have since debunked any such beliefs, saying that nuking a storm won't work and would instead spread radioactive fallout via trade winds to populated areas. 23. Whistling to call the wind. Whistling on a ship was considered bad luck in the old days, since it was believed that it could call the wind. In a dead calm, that might be a good thing. In a storm, you were basically daring the sea to sink you. Some captains banned whistling completely. Others only allowed it when the sails hung limp, hoping it might entice a breeze. But superstition wasn't the only reason. The bosun used a special whistle to give orders, and a random tune could confuse the crew at the worst possible moment. There was one guy, however, who could whistle all he wanted: the cook. Because everyone knew that if he was whistling, well, he wasn't sneaking bites of the rations. 22. Weather control by artillery. Nukes on hurricanes was one thing. I mean, that was only theoretical. Hail cannons are actually in use. Depending on where you live, you may have seen these machines popping like fireworks before a storm. Throughout much of southern Germany, France, Italy, and even Mexico, it isn't even strange. The notion is that the sonic boom will break hail before it rains down on fields. Now, you might ask, does the technique even work? And the simple answer is no. Multiple scientific reviews, including a detailed one from 2006, concluded that hail cannons are all show and have no proven impact. Real storms are far too big and powerful to be disrupted by sound. However, in hail-prone wine country or orchard regions in Europe and Latin America, farmers swear by it. 21. The Rain Queens of Southern Africa. Close to a town called Tsanin in the Limpopo province of South Africa, there's a royal title that comes with one very specific job: controlling the rain. The Mojaji, or Rain Queen, has been part of the Bolobedu tradition since the 1600s, and is believed to bring clouds to allies and withhold them from their enemies. The position passes from mother to daughter, and the rules are strict. The Rain Queen is expected to have a girl child with a male relative to keep the matrilineal line going. There have only been 6 Rain Queens so far. The last one, Makobo Mojaji, the 6th, died in 2005 at just 27, leaving behind a 5-month-old daughter, Masalanabo. She was too young to take the throne, so Makobo's brother stepped in as regent. The area still draws visitors, with trails through Mojaji Camp and a massive cycad reserve that holds the largest concentration of Mojaji palms in the world. 20. Beating a bucket of water. In Taiwan, there's an old belief that if you want to boost fertility, you wait for a full moon, set out a bucket of water, let the moon's reflection sit on it, and then beat the water with a branch. It all ties into a mix of moon lore and old beliefs about fertility. The moon's cycle lines up closely with a woman's menstrual cycle, and in Taiwanese tradition, water is often connected to women's reproductive health. Some even call menstruation lunar water. Add the moon's round shape, seen as a symbol of pregnancy, and you have a ritual that blends the two. This isn't something you'll see in every household today, but older generations still pass it down as one of the many try this methods for having children. 19. Onion skins as a winter forecast. There's a rhyme that goes, onion skins very thin, mild winter coming in. Onion skins thick and tough, coming winter cold and rough. It's one of the dozens of nature-based forecasts people have passed down, promising a sneak peek at the coming season. The idea is that the thickness of an onion's papery skin can tell you if winter will be mild or brutal. It's been around for generations, but the accuracy is another story. People tend to remember the times it was right and forget the times it wasn't. Any correct calls are usually just coincidence, since weather patterns like El Nino or ongoing droughts can create a bit of consistency from year to year, which might make an onion seem like a decent predictor. 18. Hurricane sharks. Every time a hurricane floods a city, the same thing happens. A photo goes around showing a giant shark fin slicing through the street like something out of a disaster movie. And every time, it's fake. The hurricane shark image, a great white cruising along a highway, has been popping up online since at least 2011. It's been spotted during Sandy, Harvey, Ian, and just about every big storm since. It even got shared by US Senator Ted Cruz in 2023 before he realized it was a hoax. Snopes traced the shark to a 2005 National Geographic shot taken far from any storm. So hoaxers just paste it into flood scenes and watch it spread. Hurricanes do push strange animals into unexpected places. Fish, gators, even the odd manatee. But a shark in the middle of Main Street is most definitely Photoshop. 17. A shaman to reroute bad weather. In parts of Indonesia, if you've got a big outdoor event coming up, you might hire a rain shaman to keep the skies clear. These shamans use incense, chants, and specific rituals to move rain clouds away from the area. One time everyone could see them in action was at the 2022 MotoGP race in Lombok. The shamans were brought in to walk the racetrack, performing ceremonies to hold off the storm. For believers, it's a direct appeal to nature, or to God, to keep the skies clear. And it's still a part of everyday life in many communities. Rain shamans have been called on for weddings, political rallies, and national events. Science hasn't found any proof that they can move a storm, but the tradition stands firm. 16. Wind from the west means more fish. Plenty of fishermen swear by this one still. The principle is simple. If the wind's blowing from the west, the fish will be biting. If it's coming from the east, don't bother. It's been passed around docks and bait shops for years, often as a quick explanation for why a trip went badly. In reality, wind direction isn't going to make or break your catch. It's more of a built-in excuse for a slow day on the water. And like a lot of fishing lore, this myth mostly lasts because, well, no one talks about the trips where it didn't pan out. Which means you'll still hear it today, especially from anyone heading home with an empty cooler. 15. The Lady Cat Processions. In certain areas of Thailand and Cambodia, a dry spell can lead to one of the most unusual weather rituals you'll ever see. Villagers will carry a live cat, usually a female, through the streets in a basket or cage while splashing water on her. People believe that if water falls on the cat, rain will soon fall on everyone else. The parade is lively and noisy, with people singing old rain-calling songs and kids running alongside, tossing extra water into the air. In some places, the cat gets even decorated with flowers or shaded under a colorful cloth. And while the cat isn't really harmed in any way, the meowing is part of the point. It's believed the sound reaches the rain spirits. 14. Church bells to stop lightning. In medieval Europe, thunderstorms didn't just send people running for cover, they sent some straight up the bell tower. Traditionally, people believed that ringing church bells could drive away evil, which in this case meant the lightning itself. Some consecrated bells even bore Latin inscriptions like Fulguro Frango, meaning I break lightning flashes. As you can guess, it didn't end well for many of the ringers. In France, between 1753 and 1786, at least 103 were killed by lightning while pulling ropes during storms. In Germany, about 120 died between 1870 and 1900 for the same reason. Once scientific research caught up, people saw how dangerous the practice really was. The lightning rod offered a safer way to protect churches, and the tradition of ringing bells during storms was finally abandoned. 13. The Rainbow Serpent. In Aboriginal Australia, the Rainbow Serpent is the being that brings rain, rivers, and waterfalls to the land. When a rainbow arcs across the sky, it's seen as the serpent gliding between waterholes, sometimes underground, or riding storm clouds, making life bloom where the land was once dry. Some Aboriginal groups call it Ngalyad or Waggle. Others call it by different names, but they all view it as a creator spirit tied to water. Communities usually perform rituals, sing, or mark the serpent's sacred sites to show their respect and to avoid its anger, since upsetting the serpent can mean droughts or floods. It's one of the oldest living myths on Earth, passed down for thousands of years, and yet it's still vibrant in art and culture across Australia today. 12. Crows flying low mean a storm is coming. Out in farm country, people have long looked to the skies for clues, and not just at the clouds. A flock of crows can supposedly tip you off about the wind. Low-flying crows are said to mean blustery weather is on the way, while high flyers signal calm conditions ahead. There is a bit of science tucked in there. When air pressure drops before a storm, the thicker air makes flying more work, so birds often stay closer to the ground. When the pressure is high and the skies are stable, they can glide higher with less effort. It's far from the perfect forecast, and there are still plenty of false alarms. Still, the image of crows sweeping low over a field has been enough to convince generations of people that a change in the weather is coming. 11. Pointing at a rainbow. There are places in the Philippines and Malaysia where children are warned that pointing at a rainbow can leave you with a bent, swollen, or rotting finger. When a linguist by the name of Robert Blust visited Sumatra, he learned this the hard way. However, his curiosity got the better of him, and he began tracking the myth through old ethnographies and first-hand accounts. Over the years, he found versions of it in 124 cultures, from the Lakota in North America to tribes in New Guinea, the Nuaba of the Ivory Coast, the Kaiwa of Brazil, and even in European folklore collected by the Brothers Grimm. In some places, you can avoid the curse by using a fist or pointing with your nose, lips, or tongue. The logic, he believes, is simple. Rainbows were sacred, and pointing was a sign of aggression. Today, it survives mostly as a playful warning to teach children not to point. 10. The magical fox behind the Northern Lights. Ask a Sami elder, and they might tell you the Northern Lights starts with a fox's tail brushing snow into the sky. In this Arctic myth, the magical fox races across the frozen tundra, its thick tail sweeping the ground. Each sweep sends a spray of snowflakes upward where they catch the light and become shimmering arcs of green, violet, and blue. The Finns even have a word for it, revontlet, which means foxfires. For the Sami people, the story doubled as both entertainment and a way to connect the lights to everyday life in the Arctic. Today, we know it's caused by solar particles colliding with Earth's atmosphere, but the image of that fox racing under the stars does kind of stick with you. 9. The Wind Ropes. Out on the Baltic and North Seas, there was a time you could buy a breeze. And that rhymed. The sellers were witches and weather workers, and the product was a short rope with 3 tight knots. Untie the first, and you get a gentle push. Loosen the second, and the sails filled fast. Pull the third, and you risked a full gale you couldn't control. Versions of this myth show up from Lapland and coastal Finland to Shetland and the Isle of Man, where records describe raising the wind and packing it into 3 knots for a storm-stuck cruise. If you've never heard about it, trust me, the idea stuck around long enough to leave traces everywhere. Folklore handbooks and dictionaries spell it out the same way, right down to the 3-knot recipe sold to superstitious mariners. In Cornwall, the Museum of Witchcraft and Magic even displays a knotted wind rope and a photo of a staged revival at a Boscastle harbor. 8. The Ghost Armies in the Fog. In some regions of China, a thick blanket of fog is said to be Yin Bing Jie Dao, ghost armies on the march. These spectral soldiers, clad in ancient armor, are believed to move silently through the mountains or valleys, using the fog as cover. Stories about them describe the faint clink of weapons, the creak of phantom carts, and sometimes it'll even cover greenish lights flickering in the mist. According to the myth, if you see or hear them, you stay inside. The spirits are said to be on urgent business, and crossing their path could mean being taken into the spirit realm. This belief shows up in folk tales from northern and southwestern China and has been retold for centuries, especially in rural areas where thick fog has the habit of rolling in fast. 7. The Winter Wedding Myths. In our research for this list, we came across a myth that says if you spot the first snowflake of the year, the hair color of the first person you meet afterward matches your future spouse's. Fun idea, sure, but not exactly the kind of thing you can fact check. Another one is an old saying that goes, when December's snows fall fast, merry and true love will last. I have no idea how many of you still base wedding plans on the weather, but if that rhyme were true, winter ceremonies would be booked solid every year. Still, both of these myths have that cozy mix of romance and superstition that makes you want to believe, even if you know better. 6. A shovel of snow over the head. While I'm still on the subject of snow, a historical record from early 20th century folklore tells us that some people in North America and Europe believed that if you dumped a shovel of the first snowfall over your head, you'd stay healthy, or at least safe, throughout the winter. The odd bit of advice pops up in regional newspapers, farm journals, and even old almanacs alongside the other kinds of seasonal remedies, frequently tucked between tips for storing firewood and recipes for winter tonics. In some versions, the ritual had to happen before sunrise to work, and the snow needed to be untouched by footprints. Miss the timing, and you'd have to wait another year for your shot at a sickness-free winter. 5. Easter rain and 7 Sundays of showers. Somewhere between the Easter eggs and the church service, there's a bit of Easter weather lore that refuses to die. If it rains on Easter Sunday, brace yourself, because it's supposed to rain every Sunday for the next 7 weeks. Ask around in rural towns and you'll hear it in the same breath as stories about bumper crops or late frosts. It's as much a social tradition as it is a forecast shared over generations. But I think it's safe to say that it mostly stuck because Easter moves around the calendar. As we all know, spring weather can be unpredictable, and once you had 2 or 3 soggy Sundays in a row, your brain starts to see patterns. 4. Fairy breath or frost flowers. Every so often in winter, you might spot a plant wearing what looks like petals made of spun glass. Old myths claimed it was the breath of fairies caught in the cold. The scientific community, however, calls it frost flowers. When a quick freeze follows light rain, water is pushed through the plant stems, freezes in the air, and forms delicate, curling layers that resemble ice blossoms. This is most often seen overnight on plants like frostweed and dittany in colder climates. The shapes are incredibly fragile. Touch them, and they collapse. And they only appear on the coldest mornings. It wasn't the work of fairies, but given how strange and fleeting these ice curls are, it's easy to imagine someone in the past telling that story with a straight face. 3. Woolly bears and their stripes. According to this one, the pattern of stripes on a woolly bear caterpillar can tell you how bad winter will be. More black? Get ready for a rough one. More brown in the middle? Expect it to be mild. The legend's so well loved that some Midwestern towns actually throw full-blown woolly bear festivals. Vermilion, Ohio even has a parade and caterpillar races, ending with the big moment, the official winter forecast based on one tiny bug. Obviously, it's a lot of fun, but according to the National Weather Service, the caterpillar stripe has nothing to do with the weather ahead. It's all about the caterpillar's age, diet, and species, which means it's just wearing whatever stripes it happened to grow that year. 2. Yellow butterflies in fall predict bad weather. There's a saying that if yellow butterflies fill the air in autumn, winter will hit hard. In the southeastern United States, cloudless sulfur butterflies do tend to appear in huge numbers during the fall, often drifting over the roads and fields in what looks like a golden migration. It's actually quite spectacular. So it's probably not that weird that some people still believe it could be a sign related to the weather. Others just think they look really pretty. In reality, though, the butterflies are actually just heading south, and their timing is determined by light and temperature. But in farming towns and fishing communities, spotting a sudden wave of them can still lead to a lot of comments about the bad one we have coming. 1. The storm bird of southern Africa. There's a southern African myth about a creature called the Impundulu, or the lightning bird, and the stories about it are crazy. It's said to have served witches, drink human blood, and throw lightning before laying its eggs underground right where the bolt struck. Supposedly, it's immortal and nearly impossible to kill. Across South Africa, Zimbabwe, and Malawi, people have told versions of this myth for generations. Some say it's a massive raptor. Others go full supernatural. One story claims it begins as an ordinary hammerkop, a bird with a hammer-shaped head, until lightning transforms it into something far more dangerous. Another says it's born in the heart of a storm, riding a lightning bolt to Earth. Its wingspan stretches over 12 feet, and thunder supposedly rolls from its talons. Folklore even gives it a shape-shifting side, letting it appear as a handsome young man to lure in innocent young girls. Today, it's mostly a cultural story, but if you've ever been caught in an African thunderstorm, you'd get why people wanted something bigger than the clouds to blame. That just reminds me of the Thunderbird from Harry Potter. Maybe that's where they got that. And that's all I have for you today. But before you head out, tell me, at which high-profile event did a shaman famously perform a ceremony to control the weather? Was it at the A, 2019 Rio Carnival, B, 2022 MotoGP race in Lombok, C, 2016 Summer Olympics in Brazil, or D, 2023 G20 Summit in Bali? Drop your answers in the comments below, and while you're there, tell me which of today's myths you grew up with, or even if there are others that should have made the cut. Now, if this list got you interested in our planet's stranger side, you'll also love our related video, 25 geography facts that'll make you sound like a world traveler. It's got a waterfall taller than Angel Falls that almost no one will ever see, and a spot on Earth you can only reach if you start in space. The link to that video will pop up right here any second. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you again next time. See ya.